In this video, we cover the aspects dealing with pneumonia. It's actually quite a short section. You'll see in your notes, it's literally 3 pages at a maximum, but it is a large section in that most of the pathologies that we find in clinical practice as well as in domestic animals, especially your ruminants, is dealing with pneumonia. And it's a short section, like I said, however, it can sometimes be a bit confusing and difficult. What I'll do in this video is just to try and give you a broad overview of how we classify pneumonia and exactly which type of patterns are associated with which type of pneumonia as a quick introduction. The rest I'll deal with in class. As with all the content that I present, I like to indicate and show you where it actually fits in your whole syllabus, and basically, specifically with respiratory pathology, where it fits into what is expected of you for this section. So the objectives we'll deal with in class, obviously, as I mentioned before, the lists I'm not really going to go into so much in class. However, what's going to be important here is discussing the pathogenesis and schematic illustrations of the different types of pneumonia, being able to identify, first of all, that a lesion is pneumonia, and then from there being able to actually classify it into which type of pneumonia you're dealing with. And we'll touch a little bit also on the complications of pneumonia, but the rest of the work we'll do in class. I'm going to present this slide in class in further detail than what it is here. It looks a bit busy, but I believe this slide will actually help you understand especially the difference between interstitial pneumonia, the location, and as well as bronchopneumonia and where that is located, because I heard a lot of questions yesterday being directed regarding interstitial pneumonia especially, and this will help, hopefully anyway, help classify all of that and help clear it up. Pneumonia is classified into 4 basic morphologically distinct types, and often you can actually even identify these and divide them based on just being able to identify the distribution of the lesion in the lung. And I'm going to try in class to delve a bit more into this, but just to have a basic understanding and a basis on which we're going to build on. I'd like you to use this slide as a mental reference to the different morphologically distinct types of pneumonia. If you think back of the classification list I gave just now on the previous slide, you'll see that there were 4 main morphologically distinct types, and they were based mostly on the distribution pattern of the lesion. What I'd like you to do is to think about the different types of pneumonia, the basic ones, and then from that, in your own time and by yourself, try and distinguish which pattern is which. Okay, I'm going to give you you can pause the video for a few seconds, see if you can correlate it yourself, and then I'm going to quickly highlight exactly which one fits where, but obviously we'll do this in much more detail in class. Okay, so just give me a second. Okay, so we mentioned earlier that we get a bronchopneumonia. Bronchopneumonia is often distributions are cranial, ventral. So I wouldn't penalize you or tell you you're wrong. Actually, I'd be impressed if you told me that this most likely represents a bronchopneumonia. All right, this one here, I would correlate more with, for example, an aspiration pneumonia, for example, in ruminants, and that's because you can see the different, even though it's cranioventral distribution, but it's unilateral, and with ruminants, you know, the bronchi branch off a bit more cranial on for the right lung. Okay, here is the big old interstitial pneumonia. I got a lot of questions about that yesterday. and this is the distribution pattern that you often get. It usually starts like at the back here, dorsal caudal, and then eventually with time the severity increases, and by the end of it you get the entire lung being affected. Here you've got an embolic pneumonia where you've got multiple foci of bacteria or whatever the cause it is that has embolized from a distant site and ended up in the lung, and then that foci being surrounded by inflammation. So my embolic pneumonia I'd expect to be this one, and my granulomatous pneumonia where you've got often is nodules because of neoplasia, or it can be tuberculosis type of inflammation of pneumonia. And the main difference between here is that the distribution, although it's multifocal, as with embolic, the distribution here is actually more, actually the distribution is less linked to blood vessels. So the distance of these lesions is actually further apart. It's more complicated than that, but at least this is the basis that I'd like you to have and carry on further in class.